Mortal Kombat, you know, the video game? Mortal Kombat. The new version comes out this week. Remember, please, it was one of the very first violent video games, and because of Mortal Kombat, the original, we have the video game rating system that we use today. Tian Wang is with us, Gamer World News Entertainment host. Tian, is it possible that people buy this game and play it for the shock value, the blood, the gore? Is that possible? Is that why they're buying it?
You know, it's the shock and gore that you're mentioning in the game, especially the fatalities, are something of a gimmick, and it was there in the original Mortal Kombat game. And, you know, these days, most of the time when people buy the Mortal Kombat games, they actually buy it for the fantastic story that it presents. Because of all of the games in the fighting game genre, Mortal Kombat is the one that can best tell a compelling story with characters that people enjoy.
Well, what do you mean by tell a story? I always think of it's just, look, I've not played these games. I always think of it as I've got the controller and I'm firing at somebody and I'm taking hits from somebody. I thought that's what it was all about. What's this story you're talking about?
Okay, so back in the day, you know, the original Mortal Kombat games were very simple games to develop. The first Mortal Kombat game actually only took 10 months, and it was basically just a pure fighting game. Like, you just beat up all of your opponents, and then you beat Shang Tsung, who was the final boss, and that was pretty much it. But because the technology has advanced so far, these AAA gaming titles tell compelling stories. It doesn't really matter which genre of games that you're playing. Even fighting games tell this story, and the story mode in Mortal Kombat X and in Mortal Kombat 11 actually runs over 2 hours. It's like a major motion picture.
Wow. Is it going to sell to the tune of $1 billion in the first couple of weeks, do you think?
I don't know about $1 billion, but let's say that the last Mortal Kombat game, Mortal Kombat X, was their best-selling game ever, and that sold about 10 million units. So you can expect to see comparable levels of sales this year, if not better.
By the way, I am told that this week marks the 30th anniversary of the Game Boy. I do remember that. You probably don't, Tian, but I do. It had a tiny monochrome screen. You could only play basic games. But this thing had a huge effect. This opened up the world of handheld gaming, didn't it?
Yeah, so the Game Boy was significant in so many different ways. First of all, it made mobile gaming popular, and as we know, last year, mobile gaming generated $63.2 billion in revenue. The Game Boy was also incredible because the original 8-bit versions sold about 119 million copies. That makes it the third best-selling console of all time, next to PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo DS, and it ended up becoming a cultural icon. It had an incredible game that was packaged with it, Tetris, which was arguably the greatest cyber weapon that Russia has ever deployed against the world, cost millions of lost productivity hours that continue to this day. And it helped make the Game Boy incredibly popular because it made developers want to make more games for it.
Is that how you got your start, Tian?
You know, it's funny, I never owned a Game Boy, but every one of my friends had a Game Boy, so I definitely had a lot of experience on that platform.
Real fast, 20 seconds. What's your favorite game that you play now?
The favorite game that I play now is StarCraft 2 because it's like 3D chess, and it's a part of a genre that's kind of dying out, and I like to think that I'm one of those people that
How many hours do you play a day?
Probably not very much anymore. It's more like about a couple of hours a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, times are changing. I'm a busy man.
Ain't they? Yes, you are. You're making some money. And you're a doctor as well. I understand that, okay? That's a big deal here.
Yeah.
Tian Wang, you're a busy guy, but thanks for spending time with us today. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure, Stuart.